Hello and welcome to another glorious day here in Ayia Napa, Cyprus. It's good to be out here. It's great to live out here. Wish you were here. Well, some of you I'd rather not be here. I can't be having with all that James Gunn shilling in my ear 24/7. Anyway, tracking has come out for James Gunn's Superman movie, and shock horror, it's tracking for 600 to 700 million at the global box office come July the 11th and thereafter. Wait a minute, isn't that around the same amount of money that Man of Steel made globally? Wasn't that the reason that they didn't allow Goya and Nolan to continue with the DCEU with Zack Snyder as merely just a director to do a Man of Steel sequel? Because apparently not enough people interested in Superman, so they brought Batman into the mix and called a movie Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. That wasn't Zack Snyder's idea. Snyder wanted to do a direct sequel to Man of Steel, as did Nolan, as did Goya, but Goya got booted out, so Nolan goes, well, if Goya's not involved, it was his idea to do Man of Steel, I'm not going to be involved. Yeah, I'll be executive producer with my good wife Emma Thomas, but that will be that. So wait a minute. You cancelled Man of Steel 2, you fired Snyder, you brought in Hamada, who gave us mid-budgeted, floppy movies, and then Hamada brought in James Gunn. Zaslav came in, removed Hamada, and made Gunn and Safran. Safran, a guy who was already producing a multitude of flopped DCEU movies to run DC Studios, the DCU, right? Am I getting this right? But how can this be? According to Warner Brothers, according to all of you, according to all the information that I have, the Superman teaser trailer from James Gunn's movie has record amount of views. It's competitive with films like Spider-Man No Way Home, Star Wars The Force Awakens, Deadpool and Wolverine. These are movies that are made from around $1 billion to $2 billion. So how can Superman be tracking for only 600 to 700 million? Because according to DCU and James Gunn Shields, it's already beaten the views for Man of Steel at the same time. So how comes this Superman movie is tracking for 600 to 700 million? Could it be that the views, that whoever's claiming the views are so record-breaking, maybe those views are fake? Maybe, I don't know, maybe certain people were inspired to view that trailer again and again and again to pitch up the views, because that's the only explanation I have. Let me repeat to you again. Movies that have a trailer with the views that Superman has normally make from $1 billion to $2 billion. So explain to me again how James Gunn's Superman movie can be possibly tracking for 600 and 700 million. I find this thoroughly amusing. Of course, you can't always trust tracking, and this is in January. And I thought they wait a few more months to do the tracking. You know, it's not like basically ticket sales are not even for sale yet. So we don't know. So this could be a falsitude. This could actually not even be tracking. This might actually be some box office analysts. But it's very, very interesting. James Gunn stands and Shields and DCU Shields are blaming the DCU, are blaming BVS, are blaming the Snyderverse, are blaming Man of Steel if James Gunn's Superman movie only makes from 600 to 700 or even below. No, if this movie doesn't make the money that Warner Brothers wants, it's the writer-director's fault. You're the same bums who blame Snyder, Goya and Nolan for Man of Steel for not making $1 billion. And you know what? It was their responsibility. They did make the movie. They made a contemporary Superman movie that I love. I didn't want to see a rehash of Superman 78. I love Superman 78, but I didn't want to rehash. I've got it. I've got it on so many Blu-rays. I've got it on 4K. I don't need that movie making again. And no one in the 21st century is going to the cinema, like not enough people to see a movie like that with that type of pacing. Bryan Singer tried that experiment and it failed, not even making 400 million at the global box office. Superman Returns is a mixed bag. It's got stunning VFX, it's got terrible VFX, it's got great writing, it's got bad writing. It's a mixed bag. And Smallville, which is a much better adaptation of Smallville without Superman wearing the costume, was around at the time as well. And it was so popular and it was so successful. Doing a movie back then was futile, or at the very least, you had to make it so good. And no one really, apart from Superman 78, and I think Man of Steel is great, but I just think Smallville is the dawn, basically, of Superman adaptations. I think it's one of the best adaptations. It's as simple as that. And it didn't even need the costume. But anyway, please make it make sense. So after all of that, thus far, James Gunn's the bestest directors ever, Superman movie is only tracking for 600 to 700 million. Now, I'm not telling you that's what it's going to make. I'm not going to tell you it's actually going to make more, and I'm not going to tell you it's going to make less. I don't know. You don't know. The box office analysts don't know, but it's very interesting. Could it be that they're under predicting? So when it makes slightly more, they can sell it as a win. James Gunn's box office record is very interesting. Now, if you look at Zack Snyder's box office record, I'm going to assume the 870 to 880 for BVS is the highest box office a Zack Snyder film has ever had. It did help that he was directing a movie with Batman and Superman in it, with Batman and Superman in the title, of course. So Zack Snyder's never made $1 billion movie either. But I don't value directors and actors on the box office the movies they've been involved with have achieved. It's about the movie. It's about the execution of the movie. It's about the art for me. I don't care about effing Rotten Tomatoes. But that is interesting because that figure, 600 to 700, has been the figure rattled around for a very long time. In fact, it's the figure I predicted for the movie. But I said from the very moment this movie was greenlit that James Gunn was announced in directing and writing this movie. He was originally just writing it, then Safran pressured him, and this is the truth, pressured him into not just writing it, but directing it as well. Gunn didn't really want to direct this movie. He was kind of pressured into it. That's an interesting facet of this situation. So when we do the autopsy of this movie, when it's released and we've all seen it, I think that's a facet we're going to have to go back into, or the fact that he started shooting off at weekends while still shooting Superman, working on Peacemaker Series 2. Again, when we do the autopsy of this movie, we'll ask if this movie is a failure, excuse frog in my throat, but if this movie is a failure, when we do the autopsy of this movie, these are the kind of facets we're going to have to bring up. I'm sorry, James, but this is the way, analysing things should be. We should be balanced and we should do it on the facts. And you were balancing two projects at the same time near the end of the production of Superman. And I said at the time on a video that it wasn't the best of ideas. I'm not a professional mainstream filmmaker. I know that. I don't exactly know what goes into making a mainstream movie, but I know you're better off at just working on one project at a time, right? But I said at the time that this movie at the very least has to make more than Man of Steel, or it will be deemed as a failure. You bums can't go out here keep on calling Man of Steel a flop, which it wasn't, by the way. 650 isn't a flop, but the studio understandably wanted it and needed it to make more money. The film was a very, very expensive undertaking, and you can tell by looking at it today, it looks like it's a brand new movie. The VFX hasn't dated at all. It's a great movie, and a lot of money was spent on it. It's as simple as that. And not Snyder fans, not me who love Man of Steel, nobody can deny that. And they wanted it to make more money, and it didn't. But I've said this consistently. If Superman doesn't snap Zod's neck, maybe if there was a little less destruction, and obviously Jonathan Kent's death is a little bit controversial. I love it. I know what they're trying to say. And at the end of the day, Pa Kent is sacrificing himself for his son's secret, as the Pa Kent did in Smallville. It's a good way for Superman's adopted father to die. It's something that Superman has to carry with him. I do feel that Smallville executed that idea better than Man of Steel, but these are complicated facets. But I do believe if Superman doesn't kill Zod in Man of Steel, that movie at least doubles its take. It could have been really close to $1 billion or on the nose of $1 billion. Because let's not get it wrong. I think Man of Steel is a great movie. It looks good, it feels good, it's pretty well written, but that moment divided audiences. And even as a hardcore Superman fan, I didn't have an issue with it because I was expecting Goya to come back for a Man of Steel sequel and have Superman, learn from killing Zod and not wanting to kill again. I suggested many a times when he's standing by his father's gravestone to say, I know what it's like to kill, I will never kill again. I never want to feel that way again. I don't want to have the feeling of taking another person's life. That's all they needed to do. For Superman to and Superman does show remorse for killing Zod. He doesn't want to do it. He's devastated. He's killed, apart from him, the last of his kind. He tried to reach Zod and he couldn't. It's devastating. I don't necessarily disagree with the killing of Zod, but if you're a studio and you want to make top dollar for a really good film, by the way, then if that moment isn't there, Man of Steel does make more money. So there's that. I really like the trailer for James Gunn's Superman movie, but when you look at the trailer, it's just stealing from other people's work, including graphic novels. He's trying to please everyone. Snyder fans, Donner fans, animated DC fans, everyone. And even the fact of the kid, with the S flag saying Superman, he wants Superman's help. Whatever that war is, right? That's taken from the comics as well. So where's the originality? And now they've released a 4K trailer where they've put that scene in where Lex Luthor and his cohorts are going to the fortress. That's another issue for me. How many more times are we going to see Lex Luthor going to the Fortress of Solitude? We saw it in Superman 2, we saw it in Superman Returns, we saw it in the season 7 finale of Smallville. They did it brilliant because you've got this brilliant kind of dialogue between the two characters. There's no hiding it anymore. Lex totally knows after 7 seasons Clark's secret, and it's a compelling moment. And I think they did that concept the best. But ultimately, how many more times are we going to see Lex Luthor going to the Fortress of Solitude? But I do like that moment when Superman sees the damaged robot. I'm assuming Lex and his cohorts have damaged that robot, have corrupted that robot. It's a sad moment. I want to see some originality. I've said this before. I don't want to see a rerun of other movies and TV shows. And one of my concerns from that trailer, as great as it looks, is that we're treading old ground. We're trying to give everyone Superman's greatest hits. He's trying to please everyone, and you can't. The only thing you can do is use your common sense as a storyteller and make the best original Superman film you can. Snyder, Goya, and Nolan did this. Yes, by some quarters, it was hated. But a lot of people love Man of Steel. And in fact, a lot of people who didn't like Man of Steel are coming to the plate today, are coming to the table and thinking, actually, this film was really, really good. And I was overreacted with this film. A lot of people are saying that. And I think a lot more people will say that once they see James Gunn's Superman film. But 600 to 700 million at the global box office, not a disaster, but not really better than Man of Steel either. Is it now?